As I write this script, the Halo Infinite October Tech demo comes to a close. Having played it extensively, I have some thoughts. This is just a tech demo, beta, whatever. I understand that. I make this video in the hopes of articulating the thoughts of myself and fellow fans, and perhaps reaching 343 Industries with our praise and concerns. I won't talk about the art style and music, instead focusing on gameplay, but I want to make it clear that I definitely approve of the direction that both of these have gone. Particularly, the more militaristic look of the Spartans and the return to a more detailed and weathered Forerunner aesthetic. If the Prometheans return in their Halo 5 incarnation, my mind will be fucked beyond recognition. With that out of the way, let's get going. Money, baby. As you are all probably aware, Halo Infinite's multiplayer will be free to play when it releases in December, a la Call of Duty Warzone. This presents a major challenge for the developers. If the game is free, how do we make money? Well, Lambo. In order to tackle this most grievous of issues, 343 Industries have had to adopt some of the more sinister tactics of their peers, Activision and Epic Games. Chiefly, Halo Infinite will operate with a Battle Pass system, with players paying for this pass and earning their cosmetics this way. Unlike other games, the Halo Infinite Battle Pass will not expire, which is something of a relief. While an evil, this is definitely a lesser evil than Halo 5's requisition system. The problem is that the shockwaves of this Battle Pass have spilled into other elements of the game, some of which genuinely impacting the gameplay. Progression through the pass is earned via completion of daily and weekly challenges for Battle Pass XP. Say you play a game, you win. You celebrate. You hold your breath while you wait to see how much XP you earned. The screen loads, 0. You've earned no XP. Why? You didn't assassinate 3 enemy Spartans who were all armed with the energy sword while riding a unicycle. You rage. Your newly purchased Xbox Series X ends up in pieces on the pavement several stories below your apartment window. I mean, at the bottom of the stairs in pieces in your mother's basement. In a frankly bizarre move, 343 has decreed that simply playing the game is not enough. If you want to progress, you play it their way. Nice. Radar and HUD. The Halo Infinite radar allegedly has a range of 18 meters. Whether this is true or not, the radar is not a viable method of enemy detection in this game. You will sooner smell the enemy than detect their presence on the radar. On the arena map Recharge, I have found that enemies will only show up on my radar if they enter the room I am standing in. Additionally, the current radar is actually a little bugged. In the last flight, enemies would only be visible if sprinting or shooting. While the return of a classic style motion tracker comes with great relief, the range still disqualifies it from usefulness. This is further compounded by how fast players can move around the map, giving games a feeling of chaotic randomness that is very un-Halo and very unwelcome. If I wanted to experience this combination of helplessness, dread and resignation to my fate, I'd just walk out into traffic in the road blindfolded. Visuals. The toxic byproducts of the Battle Pass are most potent in the visual language of the game. Halo Infinite ditches the red versus blue color scheme used in the team matches of all previous incarnations of Halo in favor of a Destiny-style personal shader system, called armor coatings. In order to discern friend from foe, the game gives you an option to assign a color outline of your choice to friends and enemies. This color constitutes the shield of the enemy, growing more intense as they are damaged and then bursting away into all too subtle sparks when their shield drops. First things first, the decision to restrict player color customization into 343 approved, money-locked color schemes, and then to try to defend that decision as anything other than a cash grab, is laughable and insulting to the intelligence of the consumer. Second of all, it doesn't work in gameplay, at all. The outline is just too subtle, especially when enemies are close to the player and either undamaged or with shields down. This, in combination with the radar, makes for a very frustrating experience. Sound. To make matters worse, the sound thus far seems to muffle the approach of nearby enemies. Given how useless the radar is, I often found myself resorting to sneaking around trying to hear people coming. You'll hear them, sure, but not until they are mere feet away from you, at which point it's about who can melee first. Or, who knows how to exploit the latest incarnation of the XP present in the flight. Funnily enough, the sound design for weapons and vehicles is pretty good. I really like the sound of the reload for the rocket launcher. It sounds so real. The thunderous crash of the Scorpion firing off a shot is also extremely cool, as is the sound of the sniper. Maybe they just haven't tuned the sound for Spartan movement, because the level of detail and attention elsewhere is brilliant. Movement. There's not much to say about the movement. Mechanically it is pretty industry standard. You sprint, you clamber. I prefer my non-sprint Halo, but the chances of that ever being done again are pretty bloody slim in a Call of Duty dominated FPS industry. Interestingly, the sprint speed is not hugely faster than the walk speed. According to the latest estimates, sprinting is 9% faster than walking. The game makes a huge effort to convince you otherwise, with gusts of wind passing you by as you run. My real concern with movement is not the existence of sprint but the speed that players move at anyway, and how that clashes with the map design, which I will discuss later. Another strange point about the game is that player collisions apparently do not occur. You can walk through teammates and enemies. However, if you hit a teammate with a warthog, bye-bye birdie. Curious. Weapons. This is my favorite part of this game by a good margin. Since Halo 3, the amount of weapons in the sandbox has grown to absurd levels, with many of the weapons just being weaker or less interesting versions of each other and thus, disregarded by the player. Halo Infinite remedies this by streamlining the sandbox and reimagining old, obsolete weapons with new function and purpose. For example, the scattershot is reimagined as the heat wave. This Forerunner weapon fires slow-moving projectiles that bounce off surfaces, and boasts a dual fire mode with horizontal bursts that have a large spread and a vertical mode with faster-moving projectiles at a tighter spread. Rather than just being a Forerunner shotgun, this weapon can be used as something of a chaotic area denial tool in tight spots, flooding rooms with deadly bouncing heat. Many other weapons have been reinvented with changes of function. The incineration cannon becomes the Ravager, the DMR becomes the Commando, and if we consider function, the Spartan laser and binary rifles have been merged to create the Skewer. I have only one concern when it comes to weapons. The assault rifle is vastly easier to use than anything else in most scenarios. I'm not arguing that it should be a bad gun, but I am saying that it shouldn't be viable against the battle rifle at any kind of distance at all. It appears to have very little spread and a high headshot multiplier, making it deadly at ranges usually reserved for burst or single-shot weapons. It is also vastly easier to aim, for some reason. Aiming in general felt bizarre to me when I first picked this tech demo up. After doing a brief bit of scrolling around Reddit and other wretched hives and playing with the settings, I discovered that turning the dead zones to 0, lowering look sensitivity and maxing out the look acceleration made the aiming feel much more natural and akin to older titles. It should be noted as well that this game features much less aim assist than previous Halo titles, which compounds how weird the controller aim feels. Ironically, the aim assist in Halo Combat Evolved was what made the game more success than failure, allowing for the use of a controller to aim smoothly in an era dominated by mouse and keyboard FPS titles. 343 doesn't seem to acknowledge the significance of this, continuing the thread started in Halo 5 of catering the game towards the most hardcore of competitive players, a move fueled by fairly understandable fan backlash towards the particularly strong bullet magnetism seen in Halo 4. It boggles the mind that the company can't simply swallow their pride and look to Halo 3, which was universally loved, though not so much as Halo 2 among competitive circles. Just do the Halo 3 aiming, alright? It's fucking perfect. The equipment. I also like the equipment system. Speaking of Halo 3, this feels like a strong stride in that direction. All of the equipment is useful in its own right. The threat sensor feels a bit dodgy sometimes, and I've heard it suggested that its existence justifies the small radar range, which is a very smooth brain take. All in all, equipment is really fun to use, which is the most important thing. The vehicles. The vehicles are a mixed bag. I appreciate the new detail that has been put into making the vehicle damage as realistic and compartmental as possible. Individual wheels can be shot off of warthogs and mongooses, for example. The noise that warns you of a vehicle's imminent explosion is also appreciated. I do think though, that the vehicles are too easy to destroy. You almost have to catch individual players for vehicles to be useful, since being surrounded by a group of 4, even if they're armed only with assault rifles, is mostly a death sentence. Strangely, the rocket launcher is no longer a particularly useful anti-vehicle weapon. Often, shooting a warthog head-on with the launcher will fail to kill any of the passengers, which I think is ridiculous. The skewer on the other hand, is both highly effective at killing vehicles, but can do so from a huge distance, making it a no-brainer. It is preferable to the Spartan laser, but only barely. Maps. Infinite has thus far shown us 4 arena maps and 1 big team battle map. To be honest, I'm not crazy about the arena maps, particularly the 3 smaller ones. They feel just a little too small, and are devoid of serious barriers to movement, given the speed with which players can traverse the map, and the fact that the silhouettes of your teammates are visible 24/7 through the walls. Players can easily reinforce their teammates if they are attacked or show up and mop up the weakened attackers. I can't help but compare these maps to my favorite classic Bungie Halo 4 vs 4 maps. One that comes to mind is Halo 3's Guardian, which restricts movement around the map via its winding corridors and easily defensible stairs, and across the map with the exact opposite strategy, a wide-open kill zone that can be seen from almost everywhere and is thus extremely difficult to cross in one piece. I have little to say about the big team battle map. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. The lack of a useful radar just makes it extremely annoying to play on, especially with 12 enemies who can pop up just about anywhere. The only viable way to play on maps like this is to run through them in groups of 3 or more, which makes the playing experience a fair bit more boring than previous big team battle experiences that should, on paper, be less exciting, given the smaller player count and fewer vehicle and power weapon spawns. I like the vault system in theory, but it fails given how impossible it is to stay aware of your surroundings when stood still. In Infinite, standing still is death. Thus, a team is needed to efficiently take these vaults. Game types. I don't have a real problem with any of the game types. I've seen a fair bit of hate directed towards total control in big team battle, but I actually quite enjoyed that one. My enjoyment may be skewed however by the fact that I never lost a game of this mode and was actively involved in all the victories. Yes. I fuck. To wrap it all up, Halo Infinite is a flawed beauty. Superficially, it resembles your grandfather's Halo, but its soul is more Guardians and Call of Duty than Reach or 3. While my optimistic young heart would hope that many of the qualms I have addressed here are a virtue of the fact that the game doesn't release for another 2 months, the pain I have endured at the hands of 343 Industries and other large studios pulls me back down to earth. Mechanically, very little about this game is likely to change before release, because the reasons for these decisions are mostly financial. In reality, Microsoft doesn't want 343 to produce an authentic Halo experience, but a game that will briefly convince people that they are playing Halo while feeding them an experience that they have had 100 other times in Battlefield, Call of Duty and other shooters. Outside of the Halo bubble, the average consumer doesn't have time for no sprint. They don't have time to learn the intricacies of alien weaponry with strange firing patterns and seemingly no lethality. They don't have time to wait until the bullets they fire break an opponent's shield and then pierce their armor. They don't care about radar. They just want to shoot someone quicker than they shoot back. That isn't Halo. But really, who cares about Halo anymore? The people who remember the greatness of those games are fading, buying houses, getting jobs. They don't have time to give a fuck about Infinite anymore. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, well. To quote the Lord of Imbeciles, George W. Bush, and rock band The Who, I won't get fooled again.